Hello and welcome to the Rog Review. I am your host Rog, and today I will be reviewing Season 1 of Star Trek Picard. Star Trek Picard is a series owned by Viacom CBS and originally aired on Amazon Prime in January 2020. The story and episodes were written by Kirsten Beyer, Michael Chabon, Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman, while being directed by Hanal Culpepper, Jonathan Frakes, Akiva Goldsman, Maja Vravillo, and Douglas Arniakowski. The series is produced by Patrick Stewart, James Duff, Trevor Roth, Heather Cadin, Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, Alex Kurtzman, and many others. Season 1 picks up with Picard's life 14 years after he resigned in protest from Starfleet, due to them pulling out of a rescue attempt to save hundreds of millions of Romulans from the destruction of their home system. After an interview, he is visited at his vineyard by a woman on the run from the assassins. Her name is Daj, and she claims to know him but is unsure as to how. Picard then begins his own investigation into Daj after finding her face in a painting made by the deceased Commander Data. Shortly after that, the assassins return and kill Daj. Interested in seeing Daj's killers brought to justice, Picard discovers all the evidence in the case has been erased. Since Daj seemed to possess Data's memories, he visits Dr. Agnes Girardi, a specialist in synthetic life forms, and asks her about the possibility of such a person existing. After a while, she tells him that the process Daj was made from always produces twins. This leads Picard to go on a search for Daj's twin. Initially, he goes to Starfleet for a ship and crew, but when they turn him down, he contacts his former first officer, Raffi, to see if she can get him one. Begrudgingly, she secures him the services of a friend of hers, Captain Rios, and his ship, the La Serena. On the way to rescue her, they pick up a Romulan warrior monk called Elnor from a refugee camp and 7 of 9 from Star Trek's Voyager. This assembles the main cast and crew of the ship for the third part of the season's plot. The show does a nice job of describing the collapsed Romulan Empire and the formation of a lawless frontier in its remains. The development of Romulan culture is good to see, even if there is a departure from the old Roman theming in favour of a more space elf theme, but I would have liked to have seen more tie-ins with their distant Vulcan heritage. I liked the continued use of holograms of computers in the Federation, and part of me likes seeing the Federation as this less than perfect society that is held together by compromise as much as idealism. Overall, the visuals are good. The Romulan outfits, while clearly drawn from the Lord of the Rings universe, are considerably more stylish than the bulky uniforms seen in previous series. I was surprised to see how many Andorians and Trill appeared in the backgrounds, which makes a nice change from the Vulcan-centric influences in series like Voyager and Discovery. The Romulan bird of prey that attacks the La Serena over Vashti was a nice reuse of an old design, and the Romulan colony on Vashti was very artistic, and I like the set designs on the Borg cube in the La Serena. The soundtrack is unnoticeable, but although I find the intro credits weirdly segmented and almost entirely centered on all the executive producers, I do find the track that plays over the top of that quite peaceful. Dialogue and character interactions in the series are fine and realistic, although I do find Soji a little too paranoid of Picard when they first meet. The series does not uphold the traditional optimistic utopian spirit of the show, as at the start there is a ban on synthetic life forms such as androids in the Federation, and Starfleet actively seems hostile towards them when encountered. The show does have a number of guest appearances from The Next Generation and Voyager. However, almost all of these, with the exception of Mr. Mott, the barber from The Next Generation, have suffered heavily in the intervening years, or during the events that take place in this show. With regards to general Star Trek canon, I feel the show correlates better with the letter of Star Trek lore than most other Star Trek shows, but not with the spirit. I had expected that the show would be more in keeping with the spirit of previous series, and I had been looking forward to seeing how previous characters would be introduced, and how they would have prospered since their previous appearances. so initially I was very disappointed in how this show went. Icheb is perhaps the best example of this. In Voyager he was shown to have a pretty rough backstory with being genetically modified into a weapon against the Borg, and then being sacrificed to them by his parents. He had survived this and seemed to have an interesting future ahead of him, being the only person native to the Delta Quadrant to return with them, and having friends and ties back there. Obviously made him a character who would have been tied to multiple parts of the galaxy. But within the very first few minutes of his appearance on Picard, he has his ocular implant ripped out of his head while still being awake by an organ-harvesting criminal. He is subsequently rescued by Seven of Nine, but for some reason is too badly injured, so she kills him to stop him from suffering. Insult is added later to the episode when Picard disguises himself with an eye patch over the exact same eye Icheb lost, thus showing that such an injury is survivable. I felt that was a bit of a tasteless addition. I had also expected sci-fi TV shows to have finally had enough of the organic versus machine conflict trope. So initially I didn't have a good opinion of the show. It was quite hard to get into. It took me a few episodes to realise that Hugh, the Borg that the Enterprise D had rescued from a crashed ship in The Next Generation, was in the show. Unfortunately, by the time I realised that, he was just about to be killed off. But eventually, in the last couple of episodes, after they'd finished killing off past characters or ruining their lives, they got back to being a Star Trek show and I grew to like it. The later episodes kind of feel like an IDW Star Trek crossover series, where Star Trek has been crossed with a show like Firefly. As you have the Star Trek universe, but you also have a colourful crew of misfits like in Firefly or Dark Matter. It's a fun adventure in a dystopian universe. I feel this is a series that is best recommended to people who have never watched Star Trek before, or who understand going in to have low expectations, which can be adjusted and improved as they keep watching. However, I would not recommend this for people who are Star Trek purists, or people who are looking for a series with standalone episodes, because this is not one of those shows. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Please feel free to leave a comment or subscribe. Thank you for watching, stay tuned for more videos in the future, and have a good day.